When James Walker was 17 years old, he stood barefoot on the cracked porch of a tiny wooden house in rural Kentucky, staring at the horizon as the sun dipped behind the rolling hills, feeling the weight of a life that seemed destined to go nowhere. His father gone since he was 12, his mother working double shifts at a diner just to keep the lights on, the walls of their home so thin in winter that the wind felt like an uninvited guest, and James, tall, lanky, and wearing a hand-me-down jacket 2 sizes too small, had already learned that life rarely gave second chances, but he still clung to the fragile hope that somewhere out there, beyond the faded roads and rusted fences, something better existed for him, even though he had no map, no plan, and no money. He spent his days after high school hauling boxes at the local hardware store for minimum wage, often skipping lunch to save a few dollars, and his nights sitting at a small desk in his room, lit only by a flickering lamp, reading borrowed books about people who had built fortunes from nothing, trying to believe their stories could one day be his, though every rejection letter from job applications and every sideways glance from people who doubted him chipped away at that belief, until the day he made the bold, terrifying decision to leave everything he knew and take a bus to New York City with only $86 in his pocket, a backpack, and an unshakable determination that he would not return a failure. But the city was cruel to dreamers without a safety net, and James quickly found himself sleeping on park benches, washing up in public restrooms, and stretching a single loaf of bread to last 3 days. Yet in those cold, hungry nights he promised himself he would never give up, because giving up would mean accepting that everyone who doubted him had been right. He started picking up odd jobs, cleaning construction sites, delivering takeout on a beat-up bicycle, handing out flyers in Times Square. Anything that would give him just enough cash to survive, and between those jobs, he taught himself skills on library computers, spending hours learning about business, marketing, and sales from free online resources, telling himself over and over that every new skill was a brick in the foundation of the life he was building, even if he couldn't yet see the full structure. Months passed, and with sheer persistence, he landed a commission-only sales job at a small electronics shop in Queens, where the owner told him bluntly on day one, "You don't sell, you don't eat." And for the first few weeks James didn't sell much at all, stumbling over his words, losing customers, and walking home late at night with aching feet and an emptier wallet. But instead of quitting, he studied the best salesmen in the shop, copying their tone, their timing, their confidence, and slowly, painfully, he started making sales. First 1 or 2 a day, then 5, then 10, until his name was at the top of the board, and for the first time since leaving Kentucky, he felt a flicker of pride, the kind that told him he was capable of more. Over the next 2 years, James saved every possible dollar, living in a cramped shared apartment with 4 other men, eating cheap meals, wearing the same 2 suits to work, while quietly building a network of contacts and researching the emerging tech market. Because he saw an opportunity others overlooked: affordable refurbished electronics for small businesses. And in 2012, at 23 years old, with just under $4,000 in savings, he took the leap and started his own tiny company out of a rented storage unit, cold calling potential clients during the day and repairing devices at night, barely sleeping, often doubting himself, but refusing to stop, and slowly the orders began to trickle in, one client referring another, until the trickle became a steady stream, and then a flood. There were moments when everything nearly collapsed, a shipment lost in transit, a dishonest supplier, weeks when payroll seemed impossible. But James treated every setback as a lesson, not a defeat, and kept pushing forward, reinvesting every cent into the business, upgrading from the storage unit to a small office, then hiring his first employees, people who reminded him of himself, hungry, determined, and willing to work for a chance. Within 5 years, his company had grown into a multi-million-dollar operation with clients across the country. Yet James never forgot the park benches, the hunger, the loneliness, and the countless nights when quitting would have been the easier choice. And he made it his mission to mentor others starting from nothing, donating laptops to low-income students, funding scholarships, and speaking at community centers to remind people that their current circumstances did not define their future. In interviews, when asked how he went from homeless to successful entrepreneur, James always said the same thing: it wasn't luck, it was persistence. The kind of persistence that doesn't care how tired you are, how much you failed, or how many people tell you it's impossible. And even though his name was now printed on business magazines and he could afford things he once only dreamed about, he kept the worn backpack he had carried when he first arrived in New York as a reminder of where he started, because to him, the true success wasn't the money or the company, but the proof that no matter how low you start, if you're willing to endure the pain, learn from the failures, and keep moving forward one small step at a time, you can build a life that once seemed unreachable. And James knew that somewhere out there, another 17-year-old was standing on a cracked porch in a forgotten town, looking at the horizon and wondering if something better was possible, and he wanted them to know, it is.